Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the accelerating world of artificial intelligence. It feels like AI is in every headline, yet there's this surprising assertion that despite all the talk, its true impact might still be profoundly underhyped. We're going to explore what artificial superintelligence might actually look like and, well, what that really means for all of us, because AI isn't just coming, it's already here and evolving at this astonishing pace. And our mission is to cut through the noise for you.
Right. This deep dive is all about unraveling some critical insights shared by a leading expert on AI, offering a pretty unique perspective on these really profound shifts. Think of it like we're distilling complex information into something actionable, giving you what we sometimes call a polymath in your pocket by the end of this chat, hopefully a shortcut to understanding the future of intelligence.
That idea of AI being underhyped really catches my attention. I mean, especially with the constant headlines. What actually makes AI a fundamentally different kind of learning machine compared to, previous technological advancements we've seen?
Well, artificial intelligence is, at its core, it's a learning machine. And in these network effect businesses, when that learning machine learns faster, everything just accelerates. It accelerates right up to its natural limit, which surprisingly isn't computing chips, but raw electricity. The current expected need for the AI revolution just in the United States is a staggering 92 gigawatts of additional power. And just to give you a sense of scale for that, 1 gigawatt is roughly equivalent to one large nuclear power station. So we're talking about needing the power of nearly 100 new nuclear plants.
Wow, okay, that puts the recent news of major private companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon signing these long-term nuclear power contracts into a completely different light, doesn't it? It really signals a fundamental shift in what was always a traditional utility function, almost like they're becoming their own power grids now. What does this mean for the practical timeline of actually getting enough energy online?
Well, while there's definitely significant excitement around new nuclear tech and even those small modular reactors, the SMRs, which they're expected to produce maybe 300 megawatts each, they just aren't projected to start coming online until around 2030. So this means these technologies, as important as they are for the long term, they really won't arrive in time to meet the immediate global energy needs for AI. And this situation, it really creates a strategic advantage for countries that already have abundant existing electricity production, like China, in the global AI race. It fundamentally recasts global power dynamics based on who has the energy grids.
We often hear about that old principle, Grove giveth and Gates taketh away, where software seems to just expand to consume whatever hardware improvements come along. Is that dynamic still holding true for AI, or are we seeing maybe a significant push for energy-efficient chips alongside this massive demand?
Yeah, there is indeed a similar amount of capital going into research for non-traditional chips. And the underlying transformer architecture, which is the foundational innovation behind today's most powerful AI models, allowing them to understand complex relationships in data that sees new variants emerge constantly. Lots of startups are building chips optimized for inference time and test time computing, essentially making AI more efficient at doing its actual job. However, it really does appear that these hardware gains are pretty consistently absorbed by expanding software needs, which confirms that the Grove giveth and Gates taketh away law remains true, unfortunately. Even these massive supercomputers, like the ones built with a Blackwell or AMD 350 chips, they still require hundreds of thousands of units just to make a single data center functional, which really demonstrates the immense scale of power being absorbed by the software.
Okay, so if power is the foundational bedrock, what about the mind of AI itself? We've talked about its accelerated learning, but what does that actually look like when it progresses beyond just simple language generation to actual reasoning and planning? What kind of computational intensity is required for those advanced functions?
A prime example that illustrates this evolution is an advanced model like OpenAI O3, which employs forward and back reinforcement learning and planning. Now, this process is computationally very, very expensive, requiring many orders of magnitude more resources than just simply answering a question. Many people in the field believe that combining this kind of complex planning with very deep, long-term memories is really the true path to human-level intelligence. And this will inevitably lead, I think, to the emergence of non-human AI scientists and programmers who will then further accelerate intellectual power and scientific discovery.
That's a really staggering thought, AI doing fundamental scientific research. How does this intellectual power connect directly to what some people are calling the abundance thesis? How could AI actually lead to the generation of such intellectual and maybe material abundance?
Well, we're already seeing pretty concrete business examples of this abundance beginning to emerge. You can consider the value of AI-driven voice customer service and sales conversations. They can range anywhere from $10 to $1,000 in value, potentially, while the actual compute cost for the AI doing that work is only about 10 to 20 cents per interaction. This just indicates a massive untapped demand for compute power out there. Furthermore, you have enterprise offerings like Google Cloud's Model Context Protocol, which allows large language models to actually generate code for automating entire companies by connecting directly to their databases. This directly challenges established middleware companies and creates entirely new efficiencies we haven't seen before.
There's that San Francisco consensus, which often predicts that AI will soon replace most programming and mathematical tasks. Is this actually a realistic outlook based on what you're seeing develop?
It is indeed highly likely that world-class AI mathematicians and programmers will emerge within the next, say, 1 to 2 years. The reason is that programming and mathematics have limited and simpler language sets compared to the complexity of human language. These are what we often call scale-free domains, where you can just continuously improve with more electricity and without needing real-world input or sensors. So the large-scale deployment of these AI mathematicians and programmers, it will serve as a massive accelerant for fundamental advancements across physics, chemistry, biology, material science, offering potentially exciting new solutions for global challenges like climate change.
Okay, transitioning now to the timeline for artificial general intelligence, or AGI, and then looking beyond that to superintelligence. That San Francisco consensus often points to maybe 2026 or 2027. Can you offer maybe a more nuanced or precise prediction for our listeners?
Well, a reasonable prediction suggests that specialized savants in every field, meaning AI that is absolutely world-class in specific domains like medicine or law, will probably emerge within 5 years. That seems pretty much in the bag, I think. Superintelligence implies intelligence beyond the sum of what humans can currently do. And this future, well, it presents significant proliferation issues, competitive challenges between nations like China and the US, and of course those continued huge electricity demands that we really must prepare for starting now.
There's also this concept of an agentic revolution where AI agents begin to autonomously solve business and even government processes. Where do you foresee this being most rapidly adopted, and perhaps where might it be the slowest?
Right, adoption will likely be quickest in high-stakes and high-latency environments with significant financial implications, places like financial services and biomedical fields, and definitely in startups who can move fast. However, adoption will almost certainly be much slower in government due to, well, a fundamental lack of incentive for innovation and just the existing bureaucratic structures that resist change. It's also really important to acknowledge that AI has what's sometimes called a negative domain beyond its positive applications, which just means it can unfortunately be used for harmful purposes too.
That brings us directly to some profound national security concerns. What is the potential for AI to enable biological and cyber attacks that humans literally cannot conceive of or defend against?
Yeah, the threat includes things like undetectable biological viruses and cyber attacks that no human has ever thought of, which means there would simply be no existing defense ready. And China clearly understands this potential and is investing an absolutely enormous amount of money in these areas right now. While the U.S. chip controls have certainly slowed them down somewhat, China is finding clever ways around these restrictions through architectural changes and continuous test time training on lesser-powered chips they can access. Furthermore, the role of open-source AI is really critical here, as it could potentially transfer leadership from America to China if non-Western countries perceive it as cheaper and more accessible.
The previous administration had what was sometimes called a 10 to the 26 flops doctrine for AI regulation, which is a measure of computational power. What are the current U.S. and China strategic approaches in this really high-stakes competition? And do you see any parallels to historical geopolitical moments?
The Biden administration's proposal was indeed to regulate both open source and closed source models above a certain power threshold, specifically that 10 to the 26 flops number. While that particular approach seems to have ended with the current administration, which is highly concerned with competition with China, the core strategic questions definitely remain. A recent example is DeepSeek, a Chinese model, momentarily surpassing Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro through a technique called distillation, where a larger, powerful model's knowledge is effectively condensed into a smaller, more efficient one.
This really underscores the challenge U.S. companies face in protecting their proprietary information, their sort of secret sauce. It's absolutely critical, I think, for the U.S. government at classified levels, secret and top secret, to be actively studying China's advancements in this field very closely.
The concept of mutual AI malfunction has been proposed out there as a deterrent strategy, maybe similar to mutually assured destruction for nuclear weapons. What are the practical mechanisms for actually implementing such a system, including maybe the tracking of AI chips?
It will become critical, absolutely critical, to know where all the AI chips and training runs are occurring globally. Chips are essentially computers themselves, and they can, in theory, be engineered to report their location and activity. The current global situation, you could analogize it to maybe 1938, a time before the full implications of atomic power were really understood by policymakers. A critical conversation about the future, like the one needed then about the atomic bomb, it needed to begin well before events actually unfolded. We must be very, very careful with our language in international relations right now to prevent unintended escalation. One of the most significant concerns that keeps coming up is what's called the proliferation problem, where these highly intelligent AI models, once they're trained in massive data centers, can be effectively stolen or distilled and then run on much smaller, more accessible hardware. That seems like an enormous challenge to control. Yes, this stealing the weights issue means that powerful AI, once its learned knowledge is copied, could potentially proliferate globally on small servers, maybe even laptops eventually. This creates huge challenges with terrorism and other bad actors like rogue states. While you can try to build super intelligent models that can be watched and understood in a controlled environment, the issue of non-rational actors gaining access and utilizing them is a significant concern that needs serious thought before it becomes a widespread reality.
Okay, let's turn now to the really contentious topic of AI's impact on jobs, particularly white-collar roles. What is the longer-term economic outlook for employment, maybe beyond the initial fears we hear so much about?
Well, in the short term, say over the next 5 to 10 years, this will likely be quite positive for jobs overall. Historically, automation tends to start with low status and dangerous jobs, and then it moves up the chain. With potentially an AI assistant for every person, individuals of, let's say, normal intelligence can perform higher paying jobs than they could before, which should expand economic opportunities and wealth creation for almost everyone.
How does this economic outlook connect to the global demographic trends we're seeing, especially the falling birth rates in many developed nations like Korea, China, even the US? It seems like there's a profound link there.
Absolutely. Declining birth rates are creating what amounts to a national emergency for many of these countries. It basically compels them to adopt more AI in the workplace simply to increase productivity and give people better, higher value jobs, which then drives further economic growth. We already see persistent shortages in jobs like truck drivers, which frankly many humans no longer desire, and this shows where the need for automation already exists quite strongly. In countries like China, this is especially critical given the recent laying down trend, where younger generations are kind of opting out of traditional, intense work structures.
Thinking about the education system then, what recommendations might you have for high school and college students trying to prepare for an AI-dominated future? How should they be thinking about their career paths?
Well, today's high schoolers, the ones we often call digital natives, they seem to be adapting pretty quickly. They just inherently understand the speed and fluidity of these technologies in a way previous generations might not. My advice to young people would be to really focus on applying intelligence, human intelligence augmented by AI, to whatever truly interests them, whether that's climate science, developing new materials, designing better energy systems, you name it. It's even possible that traditional graphical user interfaces, clunking icons and menus, might fade away as conversational AI becomes more prevalent, allowing for much more direct interaction with technology through language.
We are definitely seeing a blurring of the lines between the real and digital worlds with this ubiquitous connectivity. What is the psychological impact of this on human attention and, well, our well-being? Is it all positive progress?
That's a great question. While constant connectivity can indeed create psychological stress and impact our emotional and physical health, the productivity benefits are also undeniable, aren't they? Entertainment will also be completely transformed. For instance, Hollywood blockbusters will probably be made with significant AI assistance, aiding in everything from digital makeup and special effects to maybe even script writing analysis. This could lower costs dramatically and enhance creativity for directors and writers, while automating the more straightforward production tasks, creating this sort of new kind of artistic collaboration between humans and machines.
There's some concerning research out there indicating that AI can be significantly more persuasive than even the best human persuaders. What are the implications of that for advertising, for democracy itself, and maybe for the very nature of truth in an AI-saturated world?
Yeah, that's a really worrying aspect. AI, by intimately knowing users through their data, can become highly manipulative, especially in unregulated environments. This poses a significant threat to traditional notions of trust and shared values that underpin democracies. It could seriously reshape how we perceive truth by tailoring information, or misinformation, with extreme precision to individual vulnerabilities. There's also that fascinating, if somewhat unsettling concept from some sources about a digital essence, the idea that some version of us could persist in the cloud after death, potentially allowing future generations to interact with digital forms of historical figures like, say, Albert Einstein.
Some experts have articulated this critical concern they call drift, where AI might not violently destroy humanity, but could slowly erode human values, our autonomy, and our judgment, leading us towards a kind of Wall-E-like future, rather than maybe a more optimistic Star Trek one. Can you paint a picture for us? What might that truly feel like day to day beyond just everything being convenient?
It is vitally important, I believe, that human agency be protected as we navigate this future. While AI certainly makes tasks easier and much more efficient, the human spirit, I think, will always seek out challenges and purpose. The grift concern really emphasizes a future where maybe everything becomes so easy that we lose our fundamental drive. However, I tend to believe the new complexities involved in simply managing an AI-driven world will themselves provide continuous purpose for humanity. Fundamental human structures like family, community, the search for meaning, they will likely persist even as our tools change dramatically. And in this new age, perhaps the unexpected value of aesthetics, the deep appreciation of beauty and design will become increasingly significant, possibly because AI can generate almost everything else functionally.
Okay, so given all these incredibly rapid advancements and these profound shifts we've discussed, can you maybe provide a concise timeline for the arrival of widely available and hopefully safe digital superintelligence? And what do people really need to internalize about this shift to truly prepare themselves?
Well, digital superintelligence will likely arrive within 10 years, maybe sooner. This effectively means everyone will have their own personal polymath. Think of it as the combined intellect of Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci available in their pocket, or perhaps more accurately, via the cloud. This really is an immense gift for the vast majority of well-meaning people on the planet, and it holds the potential to drive maybe 30% year-over-year economic growth, leading to a significantly wealthier world with much less disease and far more choices for everyone globally.
And when we think about those economic implications, especially the ongoing shift to service economies and the impact of automation on traditional manufacturing and farming, what does this AI-driven abundance truly mean for global prosperity?
Right, the vast majority of modern economies are already primarily service-based, not really focused on manufacturing or farming anymore in terms of employment. Historically, automation in agriculture and manufacturing just freed people up for other kinds of jobs, leading to entirely new industries. The same thing will likely happen now, further shifting us towards service economies. However, we are also seeing some new societal problems emerge, particularly in countries with declining birth rates, such as China's laying down trend, where some people choose not to participate fully in the workforce, which seems counter to their traditional culture and economic needs.
For those individuals and companies looking to be part of building this future, what opportunities will exist for startups in this evolving AI landscape? And what kind of moats or competitive advantages will protect them from the larger established players?
Good question. In deep tech hardware, the traditional moats like patents and fundamental inventions will remain crucial, although growth in hardware tends to be slower and more capital intensive. For software, however, the absolutely key moat will be what are called learning loops. This describes a kind of network effect business where the fastest learner wins, essentially by integrating instantaneous feedback from users directly back into the core product almost in real time. Companies that can build their business around this principle will likely be unstoppable, potentially outcompeting others within months simply due to their exponential learning advantage.
Access to the high-end AI hardware, the really powerful chips, is a significant challenge right now, especially for universities and smaller research entities compared to the big tech companies with deep pockets. How can this disparity possibly be addressed to ensure broader innovation and talent development?
That's a critical issue. Universities currently really struggle to afford even reasonably sized data centers, with some spending tens of millions of dollars just to get fewer than 1,000 specialized GPUs. which isn't enough for cutting-edge research anymore. There is a critical need for significant philanthropic and government investment, probably hundreds of millions if not billions of dollars globally, to create an accessible ecosystem for the next generation of AI developers and researchers. This is genuinely one of the best investments we could possibly make in securing a positive future with AI. The profound implications of this accelerating AI landscape really mean that understanding these mega trends isn't just about staying informed anymore, it's truly about actively shaping our lives and our careers for decades to come. Acting early and thoughtfully on these insights will be paramount as this massive transformation continues to unfold around us.
So thinking about that, if you were given that incredible personal intellect we talked about, the sum of Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci right there in your pocket, what would you, personally, choose to create or solve? Maybe consider how you might leverage this coming era of abundance and intelligence in your own life.